If you already know how to do my sew-alongs and videos, and if you'll be kind enough to watch at least one ad should it appear, which enables me to keep bringing you free content, feel free to skip ahead to go straight to the pattern spotlight. Here's a little bit about how I do my Sew With Me sew-alongs.
Techniques, I'm going to put it on the website and I will reference it in the sew-along itself. So for example, we're working on a pair of pants that has a fly front. So when we get to that portion in the sew-along, I'll do a little bit of it, in instructions in the sew-along itself, but then I'm going to refer you over to the website to go ahead and look at that video, that particular video, look it over, study it, do your own sample if you want, because I'm big on that technique binder. So go ahead and and do that. And then once you get a good hang of what that technique is, then come back onto the sew-along itself and do that particular technique with the sew-along. So that way we both kind of benefit. You still get the instruction of the actual sew-along, step by step of how to do a particular thing. But it's less editing on my part because, like I said, I'll mention it in the sew-along itself, but then I'll refer you over to the website to actually find that particular technique and go ahead, review it, look at it. And then once you master it or enough to where even you sew along, at the same time and install it in that particular sew-along that you're doing at that time. So hopefully that will be okay for you, because I think I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone for watching my videos. I love to upload the videos. I love to share my knowledge. And I'm pretty sure that you guys love to get free content. So in order for me to keep uploading free content, I just need you to do some simple things for me, some very simple things. The first thing is just to hit the subscribe button. So just make sure that you hit that. So you're subscribed to my channel. Hit the notification bell so when I upload a new video, you don't miss out and you get to see it. And then also, if there's an ad on my videos, they're typically anywhere from 10 seconds to maybe up to 2 minutes. Just go ahead and either watch it or do something else you want to do in those in that particular time that ad is running. So use the restroom, go get something to drink or something like that. Because that way, if you let that ad run, I benefit from YouTube, and that way I can still keep creating content and uploading it for free. Okay. Enough of that boring stuff. Back to the sew-along. Please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And also hit the notification bell so you don't miss any uploads. Thanks again and keep on watching. Okay, so we're moving on to step 20 to 23. So 20, basically, you need pattern pieces 8 and 9. 20 is telling you to interface it if you want to interface it. I told you with mine, it's a little on that thicker side, so I'm not going to interface mine. 21 is telling you on pattern piece number 9 at this large circle. With that large circle, you're going to sew from your marking down, okay? And then what you're going to do is once that's sewn, you're going to basically open this up like that. I have a pen on mine, so it'll be sewn like that, okay? And then you're going to attach your back facings at the shoulders to your front, okay? And then you're going to finish the outside edge how you see fit. I will be serging mine, but of course you can turn it under and stitch as well. That is an alternative. So that is 20 to 22. So go ahead and do that and come back. All right, we're on step 23. And here is the facing. I attached the back.
Okay, and finished along the outside edge. All right, so now we're going to, oh, in addition, I prepped the little V by ironing it along the fold line. As you can see, that's the fold line. And I just ironed it, and I did the same thing to the bodice. Folded it along the fold line or the stitching line that you had to mark, okay? So we'll just call that the stitching line on both of those. The stitching line, I folded it along the stitching line to make it easier to line up. So now you're going to attach your facing to your garment, all right? So it's going to be right sides together. And you are going to line up any notches that you have, the stitching lines along that front V, and your shoulders. Okay, so you're going to pin that. So when I, just so you see here, I'm aligning my two fold lines, which corresponds to my stitching lines. Okay, and just making sure that the fold lines line up. And I also put little snips, notches there as well. And I'm going to pin all the way around. And then what you want to do after you do that, and I don't have any of my pins. Now, okay, so these marks that we have, basically remember where you stitched from here down, those are some dots there, okay? So what you're gonna do is, once you pin everything around, you're gonna start at one of those dots using your seam allowance. Well, from here, you follow the stitch line, okay? All the way up to the top of your garment, and then around the neckline, you're gonna do your 5/8, okay? And then you're going to come back to that stitch line, start there again, at your dot, I should say. Then go up your stitch line, then around 5/8 of an inch. And then you want to understitch. After you do that, understitch as much as you can. And you know, understitching is basically turning the facing away from the garment and showing that the seam allowances are under the facing, and you're going to stitch close to the seam line but on the facing. And again, if you need help with any of these techniques, I have free tutorials on my YouTube page, so go ahead and check that out. Once you understitch, I want you to clip any curves that you need to clip, and then I want you to trim your seam allowance down basically by half. Okay, do all that and come back. A couple things I want to point out to help you along is when at this point, at this V point, basically, at the V point, you want to make sure, remember you have dots or circles. You want to make sure to match your dot of your facing to the dot on the inside of your garment. Okay, you want to make sure that that matches up, because that, you got to remember, that's where you're going to stop. So you want to make sure that those 2 points match up. So that's one thing. And then when you get to the back where your zipper is, so you remember, this is the way your zipper looks, your invisible zipper. The tape basically is on the inside. Now when you get to the facing, you want to flip your zipper out. Okay, flip it out, and then place your facing on top of the zipper like that. So you shouldn't be able to see the zipper at all. So again, you should be able to see, you know, your invisible zipper looks like that. You want to flip the tape out so you can actually see the tape. Place your facing over top of the tape so you cannot see the tape anymore. And all this does is, once you sew all the way to the end and you flip it out, it'll be a clean finish for your zipper tape. All right, so I just wanted to point those 2 things out, so keep going. All right, so a little bit more tips. at pivot points and at V's, you want to lower your stitch length from a 2.5 to anywhere from like a 1.5, 1.8, anything like that will work. You just want to lower your stitch length at the V point here and at your pivot point. So like a 1/2 inch before you get to your pivot point, lower it, and once you pivot, keep your lower stitch length for another 1/2 inch. So for that little L, or right angle, I should say, that's at a lower stitch length. Like I said, I think mine's 1.8, 1.5, whatever, you know, I dot down to. But just you want it lower than a 2.5. Okay, and then once you get past that, then go back up to your 2.5. And here I just made a little mark because the stitching guideline went all the way to the top. And remember, at this point, once you pivot, you want to be at 5/8. So I just use my marking tool, and down here, that's the 5/8 mark. So I know that's where to pivot. So it's no guessing. Next tip is do one side at a time when it's a V, okay? Because you want to make sure to really get that V point, okay? So pin one side and sew one side at a time. So I pinned this one side and sewed it. Now I'm going to move on to this side and pin it and sew it. Okay, so you just do it one at a time. All right, so the facing is attached. I did under stitching. So this is the stitch line at the point of the V. Okay, so I stitched or under stitched for a little bit. Let me see, about right there, that amount of that portion. And then I started again, after that pivot point along the neckline. I started the under stitching. So here's the pivot. Oops. Here's that pivot right here. And I started the under stitching about right here. So about that distance, pivot point. Under stitching started along the neckline. So that's the neckline, shoulder, seam, and of course went all the way to about, a 1/2 inch before you got to the zipper tape. You don't need to understitch over that. All right. Now before I did it, I did clip into the curve there. And now I'm going to go and trim all of this, trim all of it. And then to close this out, to get a clean finish, you're going to place the facing on top of the zipper tape. And you can feel the teeth. You're going to try to sew close to the teeth. But don't sew over it because you won't be able to zip in. But sew close to it, the zipper teeth. And then, clip your corners here. And then you'll be able to turn it out. Once you do that, turn your facing to the inside, okay? Making sure that you're able to see some of the right side of your garment on the inside of your facing. So you should be able to see a tiny bit, if you can see there. See that little lip right here? That's a little bit of the front side coming to the back side, and that's what you want. So make sure that it's done all the way around and give it a good press, and then you'll be finished with your facing. Okay, so we are at number 28, okay, which is turning the face into the inside. You're going to give it a good press. They tell you to turn at the zipper, turn the fabric. Let me just read it. Turning facing to inside, turning in ends to clear zipper teeth. So turning the ends to clear zipper teeth, but we just did it a clean finish way. The way they want you to do it, they want you to slip stitch it, hand stitch it to the zipper tape here. So what basically what they wanted you to do, you know, your facing would have been loose, and they wanted you to turn it in basically like this, like we have it here, and they wanted you to slip stitch this, hand sew it. But the way we did it, it just came out as a clean finish here, so we didn't have to do that part. And also you can and should tack down your facing to your seam allowance. So this is on the shoulders, and I also did it because we have a center front seam here. I did the front on that to keep that V in place. Okay, so this is what it looks like after a good press, and it looks pretty good. That's the V. Bring it down some. That's the V, and you see your basically this is another V corner here too. So nice. Okay, so moving on, we are going to, you need pattern pieces, just 11 for right now. We're going to move on to steps 33 and 34. So, all right, so moving on to steps 33 and 34, you need pattern piece number 11, which is your sleeve. All right, so between these two notches right here, these two circles, you're going to do 2 rows of gathering stitches. Okay, and along the bottom edge, you are going to just sew. Let's see, it says reinforce the lower edge, pivoting through small point, which is in the middle here at this pivot point. So just do a regular stitch here. Shorten your stitch length right before you get to the circle in the middle by like a ½ inch on both sides of the pivot. Shorten to about a 1.5, 1.8. Then go back to your regular stitch length and stitch till the end. If you need to at this pivot point, go ahead and put some guidelines so you know you can see when you need to, where you need to sew. Okay, and as you can see, I did that here. All right, well, let me go back, and then after you do that, you're going to put right sides together and stitch the underarm. So at this point, you'll put right sides together like this and stitch the underarm here at your 5/8. So let's take a look and see what that looks like on the garment. Okay, so these are my 2 notches here. All right, and my 2 notches. See, there we go. My 2 notches. I did 2 rows of gathering stitch. Both of the gathers are within the 5/8 seam allowance. Okay, so hopefully they do not show. And then from one side, pivoting at the large circle here, going down to the other side, I did my regular stitching, and when I got to the center here, okay, that's the center, and you see I did guidelines so I can see where that pivot point is exactly. I lowered my stitch length probably between these two that space, you know, down to 1.5, 1.8. After you do that, you're going to clip into it, clip up to your circle, but not through your stitches. Okay, to do that, then you are going to finish your seam like you see here, or sew your seam and then finish. Okay, so that's with your sleeves, right? And then you're going to need pattern piece number 12, which is the flounce, the sleeve flounce. Okay, so on the inside curve, you're going to stay stitch. Okay, so remember, you stay stitch from the outside in. So you go from the side, from the back here toward the inside, cut your threads, and then go again from here on the outside, going toward the center, and cut your thread. Not sure what they said to stay stitch. You can stay stitch at a 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch. Just make sure it's within that seam allowance, okay? Not sure what I did. Well, I can look at mine and see. I think I did mine at a 1/4 inch. And I was at the sewing machine, so that's the reason why I actually stay stitched instead of using the stay tape. All right, so on the outside, you're going to finish the outside edge with a zigzag or a serger. Okay, and then once you do that, you're going to finish it. So you can either clean finish, turn it in, and then turn it in again to clean finish like that. So it's basically a double fold, or you can turn it in one time and stitch it. All right, and that's what I did. So looking at a piece so you can see it, here you see at the top here, you can see that I stay stitched it to the middle, then came from back to the middle again. Here I serged the outer edge, and then I just folded it in once and stitched it. Then gave everything a good press. Okay, so go ahead and do all those and come back when you finish. Okay, now moving on to 35. Your flounce, pattern piece number 12, you're going to put it right sides together. Okay, and you're going to sew this seam together at 5/8, okay? And then go ahead and finish that seam. And then you have a circle when you finish. So do that for both sides. And again, that is step number 35. 36 is basically, we already did it. The 36 is to tell you to finish the bottom edge of your flounce, but we did it beforehand. So 37 is attaching the flounce to the actual sleeve, the bottom of the sleeve, and you're going to be matching the seams, symbol clippings, and you're going to, they tell you to base stitch, pivoting that small circle, but you don't have to base, whatever you feel comfortable with. So if you feel comfortable with basing, then go ahead and base. If not, just go ahead and sew it. So sew it at your 5/8, and then they want you to pivot. I'm sorry, sew it at 5/8, and then they want you to come within that seam allowance and sew a 1/4 inch away from that 5/8 toward the raw edge. Okay. Go ahead and do that and come. Okay, so I'm pinning the flounce to the sleeve, and I know I made an alteration, a bicep alteration to my sleeve, and I know I did it to my flounce as well. So I don't know if that's causing notches and everything to be off, or this is just the way it's supposed to be. But I am having to clip into my sleeve in order to make it fit. So because of that, I wanted to show you, just in case you having the same issue. Now, the one that you can tell which one that you need to clip into, and I'm sorry, I'm clipping into my flounce here, is you look at the one that's shorter, right? And that's the one that you need to clip into. As you can tell, this one has more fabric, right? If I stretch it out, you can tell that the bottom one, which is the sleeve, has more fabric. So I need to cut the top one, which is shorter, to hopefully match this bottom one. Okay, you see that? Top one is shorter, bottom one has more fabric, so I need to cut the top one. So I'm going to clip into the top one Now I do have some stay stitching here, so I try not to cut past the stay stitching, but if it does, it does. And I clip maybe every half an inch, 3/4 of an inch. And what that does is when you clip it, it spreads it out like that. So this is fabric. Once you make the little clips into it, when you open it, it spreads it out like that, which gives you more room. So now if I stretch it, you see that it's flush. Okay, and so I'm just going to get the middle here and place a pin. And do the same thing, making sure that is flush. So, and pin in the middle. So I just wanted to show you that just in case you having that same issue and you like, wait a minute, this is not fitting. What do I do? And that's how you fix that. All right, so back from the sewing machine, and as you can see, I attached a flounce to the sleeve. This is at 5/8. This is at 5/8. This is a 1/4 inch in from this first stitch toward the raw edge to reinforce, and then I serged around my raw edge there. So, and then also just to make it easier, I put a B on the inside, so I know when I'm attaching my sleeve that this goes to the back, so I know which side is which. So basically this is the flounce, where we at? The flounce sleeve. All right, so that takes care of 37. And now we are just going to move on to 41, which is basically inserting the sleeve. 42 is just doing the hem at the bottom. Okay, so but 41, and that's the last step, 42. Yay! 41 is inserting the sleeve. Okay, so you got to remember you need the right sleeve to the right side of the garment. So you need your sleeve and you need your garment. So the way I usually do it is lay it out as worn, right? So this is this side, and this goes towards the back. So like for instance, if I put it like here, that looks like that goes, right? But this says back. This is my front. So I know that actually this sleeve belongs over here. And so that's why, you know, I just like to put that little quick B on there just to help me identify which side the sleeve goes to, right? So at this point, you are just going to insert your sleeve. And of course, I have a tutorial on how to insert your sleeve. If you need help on that, go to the YouTube website, the playlist about sewing essentials, okay? And that'll tell you how my method of inserting a sleeve. Okay, so go ahead and insert your sleeve, and let's see if they say something weird on here. Yeah, so they want you to stitch again, same thing like you did with the flounce. Stitch it at 5/8 and then go in toward the raw edge and
stitch again to reinforce and then finish that sleeve. All right, so go ahead and do whatever method you use in order to insert your sleeve. Do that and come back. And so you see this one is shorter, right? So obviously you got to gather, right? So you just gather it until it fits using the bobbin threads. It's about that. And so once you do that, once you get it to gather that you think it's okay, go ahead and tie it off.
Mom?
Yep.
I'm gonna think about what place we're gonna go to.
Okay.
What? Restaurant. Fast food.
Yeah, fast food, child. I'm going to a restaurant. Okay, and so at this point you just, you know, make sure that it's flush. And who? Okay.
What's the Chick-fil-A?
Okay. And you pin it in place. And you'll try to sew from the inside. I usually don't like to sew from the inside. I used to like to sew from the outside, but sometimes it's hard to maneuver your sewing machine that way. So just sew from the inside to make it easier. And you're just gonna have to feel the bottom as you sew. Just try to feel the bottom to make sure that it's flat. So you see my index finger, I'm feeling the bottom to make sure that it's flat before I sew. So only sew like maybe an inch at a time. Make sure the bottom is flat. So inch at a time, feeling with your index finger or something like that. So all the way around, 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Go within the seam allowance, 1/4 of an inch. Sew again, and then you're gonna finish that raw edge. Do the other sleeve the same way. And for your hem, you know, you want to finish your raw edge however you want to finish it, or you can do a narrow hem, which is tuck it in and then fold it in again and stitch close to that. And once you do all that, you will be finished. So this is my first time using Wonder Tape, trying to attach the sleeve, and it seemed to hold and work. I mean, I think, you know, the main things, as I mentioned before, is you have to press it down, you know, a nice little portion to make sure, well, a nice little pressure to make sure that it adheres, but it seems to be holding up. The only pin that I used was to make sure that the shoulder point did not move, but I can probably even take that out. at this point now, because I went around and really made sure to put pressure and make sure that it's adhering. And it seems like it'll adhere good enough where, you know, I can take it to the sewing machine and not use any pins. You know, I think that most definitely is a win-win if you can take a sleeve to a sewing machine without, you know, 50 million pins. Is a win-win. So again, Wash Away Wonder Tape. This one is by Dritz. I know there's other brands or whatever, but this is the one I'm using. I'm not endorsing, you know, or anything like that, but this seems to be working. Most definitely, you know, I always use it for my zipper, invisible zipper, but I never even thought to use it on the sleeve. So I was like, let me try it, you know, because you definitely have 50 million pins when you're trying to insert a sleeve. And anything less, you know, if you can reduce the pins and sleeves, that would be lovely. So I mean, I can put, you know, a couple pins around here, and you know, that's no problem. That's like a regular seam or whatever. But usually with, you know, sleeves, you have almost pins back to back. So I probably will just put a couple pins, you know, just for my sake or whatever, but it really is holding. So just another tip, if you want to use that and try it out, and let me know how it goes.
Okay, so here are some videos of Butterick B6663, and this is on the outside, obviously, so that's the V, showing you the V, showing you down to the flutter sleeve and the inset sleeve, and I kind of went over it, but it's the bust dart, and just showing you the seams and the pointed hem, I guess you want to say. This from another angle. That blue marking is just removable. I think it's Mark Be Gone. Comes off with water. I just forgot to do that. Again, showing you the sleeve and looking at the back now. As you can see, the black is peeping through a little bit, but it's okay. I'll deal with that. That's fine. I'll read the way the fabric is too. I told you it falls away from the body, so it doesn't want to, you know, go close to the body. So that's a little bit reason why that happened. But showing you the back there. And just the other side. And you can see a better view of the bust dart there. And that is just what the finished look. All right, so now we're moving on to the inside construction, so you can just see what the inside looks like. And basically already went over everything that's on the outside, so you can see that. But that's the facing, and that's the understitching along the neckline, and it is some along the, I'm showing, that's where I tacked it down to the seam allowance, but some of the understitching is also on that B portion as well. That's the hem, showing you the waistline seam. Finish the edges, the inside of the sleeve, so you can see that it's all finished. Okay, and that's just a back view of the zipper. The pattern calls for a hook and eye, but I did the zipper all the way up to the top of the garment, so I omitted the hook and eye That's just a closer look of the invisible zipper. And again, the side the side view. And then I think I do show you the bust dart here. Yeah, so it's the bust dart. There we go. Showing you the other side as well. Okay, so that is the look of the inside of the construction. Sometimes I think it's just as pretty on the inside as it is on the outside. You want it to look as pretty on the outside, on the inside as it do the outside. So let's go over, let's review the actual pattern, okay? And what I thought of it. So, on the pattern envelope, it's marked as an easy. I do not agree with that. I think it's more of an average because you have the invisible zipper and you have inset sleeves. So I would actually rate it as an average because of those two things. So pattern review questions. Did it look like the photo or drawing on the pattern envelope once you were done sewing with it? I think it did. It looked to me just like the image on the pattern envelope. And again, I did view B. Were the instructions easy to follow? Yes, the instructions were very easy to follow. There was no hiccups or anything like that, or anything that looked confusing in instructions. So even a beginner that didn't have too much sewing knowledge will be able to follow instructions. Not saying they were able to do the techniques, okay, but following the instructions itself is pretty easy. What did you particularly like or dislike about the pattern? No dislikes. You know, the pattern is, to me, is a nice pattern. It's a nice silhouette on the body. So I don't have any dislikes or anything about the pattern. I guess the likes, you know, is I think it's a nice silhouette. Pattern alterations or any design changes you made. So for the bust, I added a total of 1 inch, which meant I added 1/4 inch to each side seam. For the waist, I added a total of 5 inches, which means I added 1 1/4 inch to each side seam. Keeping in mind that the ideal max amount to add to the side seam is 1 inch, but because it was just a 1/4 inch more, I went ahead and did it, and I didn't think it was any structural changes to anything, you know, like that. So would you sew it again? Yes, I would sew it again. I would just use a different fabric to see the different silhouettes. And yes, I would definitely recommend it to others. So let's talk about cost. So the pattern itself was $1.99. The thread I had on hand, I did not interface, even though I did call for it. I did not interface. The fabric was $2.99 a yard. I used 2.375 yards for a total of $7.10. And I needed an invisible zipper. Unfortunately, I only had navy. So that was one at $2.79 for a grand total of $11.88 for this look. And for complete construction time, prep was about 3 hours. Sewing and ironing was about 6 hours. And you have to remember, this includes filming and everything. So actually it was probably less, but because I filmed also, you know, that increases the time. So for a total of 9 hours to complete Butterick B6663. If you made this pattern or intend to, or if you're going to follow along with me, please let me know in the comments. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of content. Thanks again for watching, and happy sewing.